This is RTP. This is RTP180.
I was actually going to throw out my whole talk because I just had surgery for lip cancer. And what I wanted to talk to you about it was climate preparedness. And then I was thinking about doing like a full zinc thing with my whole like REI hat and kind of how we need to adapt and prepare for climate change. But I decided that my wife told me that was insane and that I shouldn't do it, particularly on TV in front of people. So anyway, I wanted to give you a quick summary of our program. We're at NIEHS right down the road, National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. And we've been here for 30 years. And our focus is on training people who are in hazardous situations. We started with Superfund sites, and we've moved on. Our program, actually, I didn't realize I was involved in climate change when I found myself in the basement of Charity Hospital in New Orleans. And at that point, I learned that we had a serious problem on our hands. And it's funny because I used to feel like I hated when people said that we had to adapt because that was sort of accepting what was happening, and I'd rather not have to do that. But over the years, I've found that we have a lot of adapting to do and a lot of preparing to do, and that's why I was going to talk to you guys about sunblock tonight, but I won't. We actually, for your lips, zinc. We've actually had workshops on climate justice here in North Carolina, 2015, 2016. We actually did a climate change assessment in terms of the specific populations. When you think about farm workers, you think about outdoor workers, how are they going to be dealt with? How are they going to be prepared? So I'm actually public health. So one of the things that I focus on is how do we actually look at not polar bears, but actually our bodies and our communities and our families, and how are actually different health risks impacting individuals. And these are some of the things that we've sort of looked at. Obviously, I am in the federal government, but I do still care about climate justice, I care about health disparities. What I've learned in my work is that a lot of the issues that are happening in terms of impacts on individual health are very complex. They're also interconnected, and they're things that we need to pay a lot more attention to. We have a lot of health conditions that are directly created and augmented by climate impacts. And that is something that our program has tried to do both in terms of education and protection and preparedness. I'll just say last week I was down in Texas for the week. I deployed to Puerto Rico, Florida, and Texas this past year, and we still have activities actually this week in Puerto Rico in terms of dealing with, unfortunately, I know this, I'm not supposed to get political, but these are immigrant workers, these are undocumented workers, these are the people who clean up after major disasters. That's the case in North Carolina, it's the case in many states, and they actually are the people who are on the front lines of doing cleanup. And our belief is that even if they're not from here, they still need to be protected, and that they need to make sure that we don't sacrifice them. Again, a little bit on climate change and worker health. My focus is actually on workers. So the specific populations that I look at and our program looks at are actually workers who are impacted. Again, a little bit of public health in terms of impact on children, impact on the elderly, and what I wanted to say is we actually do booklets and training that prepares people for a wide variety of actually hazardous conditions that they may find themselves into. We actually had a program, Hurricane Matthew, down in Robeson County, and we actually focused on mold. And I think what we've learned, the federal government sort of flipped our whole paradigm. We now have a major, actually, national recovery framework. And that's what we're still working under. Actually, in all of these locations that had 2017 hurricanes, we're still working on recovery, which again is a long-term issue that has health impacts on individuals and infrastructure. Since Katrina, we actually do deployments of hundreds of people. We have hazmat trainers that go there. We also always wrap up all of our work that we do with a lessons learned report that sort of summarizes what we've learned out of that. That's actually an example of a training in Mississippi that we were doing of folks who were doing cleanup. Superstorm Sandy, which I will just mention, was also a long-term deployment that we did, which I think snuck up on the whole nation, but in a way that now I think we can't say that we don't know that it might happen, so there's not a reason why we shouldn't prepare for it. And I guess all I wanted to leave with you all is that, you know, in terms of national disaster preparedness, whether it's about your family or your community or your workplace, you know, it's something that's going to change the course of our lives, our country, our history, and it's serious stuff. And we really need to make sure that what we do is something that is passed on to the next generation, because that's an actual sign, yeah, in Houston. Anyway, that was some of the things that I've been working on this past year. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.